Hey y'all, it's Alex from You Should Craft, and today I'll show you how to make one of these tiny baby Yodas. I put a little hook on mine to make an ornament, but you can leave him without a hook, or you could have a hook but just hang him on your doorknob or something. In order to crochet this, you will need worsted weight yarn in two different colors, a greenish color and a brownish color for like his little coat that he has. I'm using Bravo worsted from We Crochet in the colors Peapod and Almond. This other one is crocheted in, I believe, Red Heart Super Saver, and I don't know what these colors are called. Sorry. But anyway, this larger one was crocheted with a 5mm hook, and this smaller one I used a 4mm hook. So as long as your stitches are pretty tight, you can kind of use whatever hook you want. Smaller obviously would make him smaller, or a larger hook would give you a larger little guy. So you'll also need a little bit of stuffing. This could be yarn scraps or polyfill, like whatever you have on hand. You'll need your hook. Mine is a G 4mm hook from Laurel Hill. And then I've got my regular notions like a stitch marker, since we'll be working in the round, a tapestry needle, and tiny scissors. And then these are 14mm safety eyes. They are pretty much the biggest size that I could find when I was looking on Amazon. But I don't know, Yoda just has like big eyes, so I wanted like the maximum size, even though his body is pretty small. But okay, let's get started crocheting. So we'll be working in the round, and he's crocheted in 2 halves that are then joined together with kind of like the cowl on his coat. So you don't have to decrease at all, which is pretty sweet. That for me is one of the trickier parts of crocheting these small like spheres, is just making sure your decreases look clean. So we totally avoid that in this project. But the first thing we're going to do is make a magic ring. So I make them like this, where I lay my yarn over my hand and then wrap it around like 2 or 3 fingers and cross it to make an X. And then I hold that down with my thumb. I insert my hook under the bottom piece of yarn and over the top, and then just pull it in. And then I chain 1. And then we're going to put 6 single crochets, this is US terminology, into our magic ring. So you might notice that I hold my yarn and my hook in the same hand. But the steps that I'm doing will be the same, even if you crochet a little bit different than me. So here's 4 single crochets, 5, and 6. So then pull your magic ring tight. If you don't crochet, if you're not either a fan of the magic ring or if you just don't know how to do it, you could technically like chain 3 and join and then put your 6 single crochets into that little loop that you make. But that is up to you. I find that when you do that, you have a little bit of a gap at the top. But so right now we're going to do our first increase round. So I'm putting 2 single crochets in my first stitch. And then I'm going to get my stitch marker and just mark the first stitch of this row. All right, so now I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around. So I am approaching my very last stitch, which means that when I count, I should have 12 total because we had 6 and then we put 2 in each. So let's just check. Dope. So I do have 12. The next thing that we're going to do is mark off our first stitch. And now we're going to do 1 SC and then 2 SCs all the way around. So I've done my 1. Here is my 2. 1, 2. Here's 1. This next one will have 2. One, 2, 1. Now we'll do 2 in this one. 1, 2 again. And I've got kind of like a big, oops, knot happening in my yarn. So now I don't remember where I was. There's all this like dog hair on here, but okay, so it looks like I had 2, so now I need 1. And then 2 again to wrap up. So if you count, you should have 18. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Sweet. So I'll move my stitch marker again. And keep in mind that we want to vary where our increases fall. Because otherwise, as you're making this, it can kind of like start to get corners and start to be more of like a hexagon shape instead of like a actual like a sphere shape or a circle since it's still flat. But so I've done 1. I'm going to do 2 in this next one. And then I'll do 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, then 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2 again, and then 1, 1. Here's our last one with 2. And then we'll finish up with just 1 in our last stitch. So if you go ahead and count, you should have 24. 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24. Okay, so this is the end of our increasing because this is a pretty small sphere that we're working on. So here's my first stitch. I'm just going to go 1 around, so I'll have 24, and I'm going to do that twice. So here's 2, 3. So that is the end of my first row where it's just 1 in each. Here's the first stitch of the next row. And so again, I'm going to go around with 1 single crochet in each stitch, and I'll end up with 24 total. One thing to note about this type of crocheting is that you'll notice it's curling up towards you. But the part that's curling up, it's actually like inside out right now. So this is the actual outside, and this is what the inside of, or like the wrong side of your crochet looks like. But really, you know, if this is for you, then you get to kind of choose which side you like best. All right, so that is actually the end of the green side. I know it looks small, and it is. So I'm going to finish up by slip stitching like 2 or 3 times, and then I'll trim my yarn, leaving a decent length tail. So here's 1, 2, and 3 slip stitches. And this is a pretty long tail. I can't really remember how long I left it, but we'll be using this tail to add in kind of these like accents around his eyes. And then I used my starting tail to make this little loop, but you could do that with new yarn too. It doesn't really matter. So turn your Yoda so that the part where you finished off, where you did your slip stitches, that should be in the back. And you're going to put on your safety eyes between rows 4 and 5. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just kind of in this space. And how far apart you put them kind of depends on your personal preference. I went about like an inch-ish apart, maybe 3/4 of an inch. But you can play around with the safety eyes before you like lock them down, just to make sure that you've got the look that you're going for. And it will change a little bit because we'll be crocheting, like, well, not crocheting, but we'll be using the yarn tail to kind of add like a little bit of, I don't even know what to call this, like eye accent detail. But all right, so lock down your safety eyes. Once you've got them in the best spot, make sure they're on tight. They should kind of click. But okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is his eyes. And, well, actually, let me do his hook. I left a little bit of an extra on my starting tail. So I'm going to use this to crochet my little, like, hook. And you could either put this straight on your tree or you could attach a, like, one of those little green ornament hook things. Or you can use a longer tail too. But so if you want a hook, you should put that on. I'm just like literally putting this through. And you can make this like kind of as secure as you want to. Again, like I know I always say this, but if you're like selling it or giving it as a gift, I would definitely make sure that you're making like a super secure loop so that it won't fall off. If you're making it for yourself, then you know how to crochet and you know how to add a new loop. So if like something happens to it, it's not that big of a deal. And you also know personally like how much use you'll get out of this. Like for me, I don't have any kids or anything, so I'm just going to put it on my tree and it's just going to, you know, live there until the middle of January when I get up the energy to take down my tree. And then like it'll just be in a box for the other, I don't know, 10 months of the year. So, okay, I've got my little loop. And then I'm going to weave this long tail through to get up to the front and kind of add those like eye accents. And since this is going to be inside of your guy, if you don't want to weave in and you just want to like, you know, stick in your hook and just come out like right here, that totally go for it. Okay, but anyway, I'm almost there. And I am weaving through mostly just to kind of like secure this a little bit more. All right, so the eyes, you can, again, do however you want, but I kind of started on one side and then like looped over and then sewed it back in on the other side. So I went in kind of in the corner of his eye. So like basically where you put in your safety eye between rows 4 and 5. And then I just put my hook back at the other side. And you'll want to pull it in super carefully because you want it to be tight enough so that it like stays. But if you pull it super tight, it'll kind of just end up behind your safety eye. So you need kind of a happy median. And then I you don't want to go in the exact same hole or you're, oh, see, I just did it. You don't want it to come out. So you need to go in near where you just were, but not the exact same spot. All right. So I'm going to come out here and then kind of like weave it in this little loop that I made. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the top on the bottom. So I just insert my hook on the other side. And pull it down. And again, you don't want it so tight that it ends up all the way under your safety eye, but you don't want it super loose either. And then you can do this as many times as you feel are necessary to get kind of the look that you're going for. I did it twice. I'm just trying to make my needle come up in a good spot. So if you saw, I needed to make my bottom one a little bit tighter because it kind of came up. But all right, here is the last part of this eye. And then you can kind of weave your yarn over and do the same thing on the opposite side. So go ahead and pause the video and finish up like your eye detailing on the right side. So now I finished both my eyes and I'm just weaving in my yarn a little bit. Again, since this is the inside of your Yoda, you don't need to weave in like all of your yarn. You just want to make sure that it's secure. But you're going to be filling it with stuffing pretty soon. So if you're satisfied with your end weaving, you can just kind of pop that in there and just kind of forget about it. So now we're going to make the ears. Leave a little bit of a tail, not super long, but a couple inches. This is maybe like 6 inches long. Just because you're going to join it to the head in a minute. So we're going to chain 2. And we're going to do some increasing here to create kind of a triangle shape. So first I'm going to put 2 single crochets into the second chain from my hook. And then I'll tighten it up a little bit. Then I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And I'm going to put 2 single crochets into that first stitch. And then 1 single crochet in the last stitch. So now I have 3. Now I chain 1 and turn, I will put 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then 1 single crochet in each of the next 2. So here's 1 and 2. Now I have 4. And then I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And I'm just going to single crochet across. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then again, I've chained 1 and turned, and now here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can see it's, I guess I wouldn't call it a triangle exactly, but it's definitely like kind of the shape that we need. So we'll just put 1 more row of 4, and then we're going to do a little bit of a border on this. So I've chained 1, and now I'm going to go up to the top. So I'm going to put 5 single crochets up the side, so like 1 for each row almost. So here's my 5th. So you should be 1 from the top. And then in the very top, I'm going to do 3 stitches. I'll do 1 single crochet, 1 half double crochet, and 1 more single crochet. And then I'm going to crochet back down this other side, and I'll put 5 again. So 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I put them too close together, so I didn't get quite all the way down. So I'm just going to throw in a 6th. The cool part about these is that it doesn't really matter. So trim yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail. And then you will secure this guy to Yoda's little baby head. So I guess the first thing that I would do is weave this starting tail down to the bottom. Okay, so here's my model, but again, like, you could put the ears wherever. Typically they'll be along the same line as your eyes, so kind of in between rows 4 and 5. But personal preference, like so many things in crochet. So join your needle. And then these are a little bit fiddly to set up. And which direction you set them up is up to you. For this one, I put this side out, kind of, and then this time I'm going to try the other side just to see which one I like better. But you get to pick, so whichever side you think like looks best with your Yoda. And then you kind of fold the ear in half. And this is a little bit tricky because you have to like do it all while you're sewing. But just get it on there. And so you can fold them really tightly closed, or you can leave kind of an opening. Totally personal preference. For me, seeing the way that this ear kind of like looks, I'm actually going to put this on the other side. And there's, again, it doesn't really matter which side you do it. I don't know, it was like kind of flipping up, and it seemed like from memory, that's not what his ears do. But the main goal is just that you make something that you think is really cute. So do whatever is cutest to you. Okay, so I'm got this. And these like look really big for his body, and that's because Baby Yoda has gigantic ears. Like so these are like similarly proportionate, where you see him and you're like, wow, his ears are really big, and that's just how they are on this little guy. All right, so I am almost done getting this ear on here. And then I just need to do some touching up on the inside of it just so it like looks clean. And so you want to make sure it's super secure. So weave in your ends really well. And then I'm going to go back over all of my seaming with my other tail. So go ahead and make sure it's super secure, and then make your other ear and do the same thing on the other side. So now that we've sewn on both the ears and set up the eyes, and if you wanted to, we added the loop, if you wanted to make it like an ornament or something that can hang. So now we'll start on the brown part, which will end up being Baby Yoda's little coat that he wears. So this will start exactly the same as the green head part that we did. So you'll start with a magic loop, and then you'll crochet 6 single crochets into the loop. So I'm chaining 1, and then here's 1, 2, gonna tighten up my loop a little bit. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yep. Okay. So then now I'll put 2 single crochets in each of these stitches. Oops, that one like went not in the right part. Here's my first 2, and I'll mark my first stitch with a stitch marker. And so I'll have 12 total. All right, so I've made it all the way around. Let me just double check to make sure I've got 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Sweet. So now I'm going to put 1 single crochet and mark it. And then I'll put 2 in the next one. And remember, we'll have 18. And then 1, 2 in this next one. 1, 2, Okay, so I've made it all the way around, doing 1 single crochet and then 2 single crochets, and I've got 18. So now we'll do oops. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2 in this one, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then just one more to finish it off. And then when you're double counting, you should have 24. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So we are going to do 3 rows of single crochets. So just normal, no increasing, just 24 single crochets around for 3 rows. So here's my first. So that was round 1 of 3, where I'm just doing those straight up 24 single crochets. Putting in my stitch marker to mark the first stitch of round 2. And then, so it's starting to curl toward me, but that is actually the wrong way. So you'll flip it out so that this like inside part is on the outside. And I just finished my second row of 24. So I'll mark my first stitch. And this will be row 3 of 3 that are just solid regular single crochets with no increases. So that is my last of those 3 rows that just have 24 single crochets with no increasing. So now it's time to sew, or not even sew, we're going to crochet this bottom brown part onto the head. So you can technically start wherever you want, but he has this, I don't even know what it's called, but like the collar of his coat is pretty big. So I added this little like flap over part and where you want this to be will determine where you join this, because this will be like 4 stitches past where you join. So like I joined about here to get this right here. So I actually, on my next one, I want this to be a little bit more centered. So I probably want it to start here, which means I'll join like right under his eye on the right side. And so to do this, you're going to put your hook through both loops of the next single crochet on the brown, and then also through both loops of any stitch on the green. And again, I'm going like under his eye, but you can put it wherever you want. And then I'm just single crocheting. So here's my next stitch. I'm going through both loops on the brown and both loops on the green. And I'm just crocheting the same direction that my next row would have gone. Oop. My yarn split a teeny bit there. And make sure you have your stuffing on hand, because when we're getting close to finishing this up, we'll want to be stuffing our little guy. And you kind of have to be careful around his ears because they will be in the way. But if you like end up smushing them up a little bit, you can always fix that on when you're done. And kind of straighten them out a little bit more. All right, so I'm basically half done now. I usually fill when I'm close to maybe like 3/4 done. And then I add my stuffing, because otherwise it just, I don't know, it's hard to crochet around stuffing. So you need a hole that's big enough to put your stuffing in, but not so big that you need to like worry about it. And I'm going to go back a stitch. This is my section where I did my slip stitches. So I want to make sure that I'm going into those instead of like the stitch that's under them. All right, so I've only got a couple more, which means that we can start putting stuffing in here. So I set aside kind of a lot. This is more than you will need. But just jam it in there. And you can stuff with anything that you have on hand. It could be little scraps of fabric that you have left over. It could be stuffing like I'm using. You can use your yarn scraps. I just put mine in a little jar and save them up and then kind of put them in projects as I need stuffing. And how much stuffing you put in it kind of depends on your preference. I usually like things to be a little bit overstuffed, but not so much overstuffed that you're like seeing through to the stuffing. Because that is something that can happen sometimes with crochet animals. And then if you're noticing he's a little bit misshapen, you could kind of like smash it down a little bit just to round him out a little more. But so that to me looks pretty good. I mean, I still need to close up this last little bit. And so I'll double check it before I totally finish. And then it's hard to like not get any stuffing in your stitches, but just do your best not to like pull it out. All right, so I am still happy with how much stuffing is in this, but if you weren't, you could absolutely squish a little bit in. You could jab it in with your crochet hook if you need to. So I've only got 2 more stitches left. All right, and then I am going to continue this row by crocheting into the back loops for 4 stitches. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll end up here, and that will be like that little split in his jacket collar. All right, so I've got my hook in the back loop, and I'm going to do just a single crochet in the next 4 back loops. So I had 24 stitches in this row, but these will be, I'm going to count these as part of that row too. So here's my 4th. And so really I have like 28. So I've chained 1 unturned. I'm now going to put 2 single crochets in this first stitch. Here's 1 and 2, and then I'll also put 2 in the next stitch. Here's 1 and 2. And I kind of messed up his eye a little bit while I was reaching over it. So I'm just poking that back into place. And then you'll just do 1 all the rest of the way around. So you should end up with 30 stitches. And looking at my yarn, I think I lost a ply in here. So here we're going to be working into the other loops so that we're going underneath. These are the 4 stitches where we did the back loops before. So now we're in the back loops again. But it's just that loop that's like left over. So this is what helps give us like that crossover in his little coat collar thing. And so what I'm going to do is just do 2 more rows where there's 1 single crochet in each stitch around his coat. But you can kind of stop whenever you're satisfied with how cute Yoda is. Like, he's already looking pretty cute. Or you can give him a bigger coat. But this guy is super easy. I mean, honestly, the hardest part is like doing the eyes. But yeah, so go ahead and just finish up his little collar if you want to add more like I'm doing, or you can stop when you're ready. It's totally your preference. And then you can hang him on your door or on your Christmas tree or wherever you feel like Baby Yoda, this like round little ornament Baby Yoda belongs. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to the You Should Craft channel and check out the You Should Craft blog for more free patterns and tutorials. So thank you so much for watching.